Hello, everybody. It is Lenny Murphy here with another one of our interview series with leaders in research. And today it is my great pleasure to be joined by Rebecca Brooks, CEO of Alter Agents. Hi, Rebecca.
Hey, Lenny. Good to be here.
It's good to have you. For our listeners, if you know why I'm grinning a little bit more than maybe normal, Rebecca and I just discovered a mutual love of geeky things, and so we were just really jamming on that. Now we got to talk about less fun things like our work. Wouldn't it be great if we had a research company that just focused on comic books and
Yes.
RPGs?
Yeah.
I think there's an opportunity we should talk about offline, Rebecca.
Wizards of the Coast is my dream client for sure. Yeah.
I would love to have Marvel. Actually, a couple of years ago, I was chatting with my friends at LRW, and they had Marvel at a client at that point. And I was like, please, just bring me out. I'll pay you. So I just want to do it. So anyway,
Yeah.
enough about that. So Rebecca, and again, we had talked about this beforehand. I've been following Alter Agents for years, although you and I had not connected. And when I think about Alter Agents, I think about doing amazingly in-depth research to really understand populations at a far greater level than we get for traditional, quantitative. So I've always been impressed with the depth that you've provided in your press releases on different things, different topics you've covered. So that's my perception. Now, why don't you tell me kind of your take, since you've built the company and how you got here and what Alter Agents stands for you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the way that we describe ourselves to clients is that we are the people you call when you have an obvious question to answer. We do tracking and copy testing and that kind of thing too, but we're the ones that when it's the traditional sort of research tools and products aren't going to answer that question for you. So for example, and we've been very lucky that this past year in particular, we've had a lot of clients that wanted to publish the work. So it's given us a lot of visibility, but it also means I can talk about it, which is great. We did an international study for Snapchat on friendship and really trying to understand what are the mechanisms of friendship? How is it changing? How is technology and COVID leading into that? So it was sort of this multimodal approach. There was qual, there was quant, but we also talked to 16 experts across the globe, psychologists and anthropologists and sociologists and historians. And so we love that kind of really meaty, more sort of philosophical stuff. It's a thrill for us. So, we tend to get those kinds of calls. Also, we tend to work really well in more sort of challenger situations or in really unique situations. So a client that's really trying to break through and do something different, or they're the underdog, or in the case of like Viking Cruises, which is one of our big clients we've had for a long time, they're so dominant in the space that regular research doesn't really capture what their challenges are and what the things coming down the pipe are for them. So that's kind of what we do.
That's very cool. Now, that's how the story. How did you get there? So, as I know you've been in the industry for quite some time. So,
Yeah.
what drove you to build an agency that tackled that type of those thorny issues?
Yeah. So two things: one professional and one personal. I'll start with the professional one because that ties into the thorny issues, which is that I had been feeling for some time that we were looking in the wrong direction or measuring the wrong thing. And the information I was getting back to my clients really wasn't that helpful. And the company that I was at and many other market research companies have sort of a philosophy or an approach, kind of a model of the way that they think about research in the world, which can be very valuable. But I felt like the world was changing in a way that, we were trying to duct tape sort of new solutions to the existing model and it didn't work. So the example would be that I talk a lot about brand narcissism in our questionnaires. Traditional questionnaires are like, do you know me? What do you know about me? Am I better than the competition? Will you use me again? What are my attributes? So it's you know, it's like a needy boyfriend, right? It's just like, do you love me? How much do you love me? Do you love me more than the other guy? And it's the wrong questions because consumers don't think that way. I've never
Right.
weighed two different products and thought, well, this one's trustworthy, but this one has value for the money. Like, we just don't think that way. And so I felt like the information we were taking back to our clients really wasn't that useful. And I wanted to try something new and different. And I knew I couldn't in the ecosystem I was in. So that was the professional reason for wanting to start something different. On the personal, which I think is really relevant for Women's History Month and being a woman in this industry, was that I had noticed, again, not just in the company I was in, but in many companies, that there was this sort of strange phenomenon where the junior levels were majority women, but then as you moved up the chain, they weren't. And I had noticed that it really was sort of an inflection point with family and burnout. Mothers tended to leave the organization, go client side, do something else because the demands of being on the vendor side and being in client service were too great. Also, things like maternity leave and having to run to doctor's appointments and take care of the kids became burdensome when the expectation is, you know, a 60-hour work week and you're on call all the time. And I just felt that there was this sort of, not malicious, but just the way that the system had been built was not allowing women to become senior leaders in their companies. And I wanted to find a different way. I wanted to have a family. I didn't want to start a family in that environment. And so I thought, putting those two things together, maybe I can do something different. Start a company that asks different questions and also have a company that allows me to have the life that I want to have and to be with my family in a way that I feel good about. So that's how I got started. And we are celebrating our 11th year this year. So I'm super proud of that.
That's fantastic, and that is fascinating. I don't think I'd even thought about it until just this minute. That the you're right. This industry rewards workaholism,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I am absolutely one of those, right? I mean, the dynamic in my family is I work. And you know, and my wife and I divide and conquer with the kids and all those good things. But but I work a lot. I mean, the norm has been 70, 80 hours a week for
Mm-hmm.
20 years, right? That even my illness stuff has slowed it down. So now a slower week for me now is 50 hours a week, right? That's a light week. The in that work-life balance thing, that is, I just hadn't thought about it in those terms. That I'm just so fascinated that you brought that up, because I just hadn't thought about it, that we force these trade-offs
Mm-hmm.
that that are unhealthy, right? I mean, I think I'm lucky that I work
Absolutely.
from home, and I've worked from home for a long time, and and my neuro shit, kind of slowed me down a little bit, but that was a happy accident, right? If not for that, I wouldn't have that type of life. So
Right.
to do that by design, I guess that's what I'm trying to get to. That is uh,
Yeah.
what I heard is you decided I don't want to make these trade-offs, or if I am, it's going to be on my terms, um, to be able to have the best of both worlds. So
And
am
that
I
was
capturing that correctly, Rebecca?
absolutely.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is such a passion of mine. Like, of course, I want to, you know, sort of end my career and have people be like, "Oh, she was a smart cookie, right? She did good things, and her clients liked her." But the main thing that I want is I want to prove by demonstrating that you can have a exceptionally high level of client service, you can have really happy clients, and really happy employees that have lives outside of work that feel fulfilled by other things. I don't think that, you know, whenever we start having 1 or 2 weeks where we've got people working 60 hours, we start thinking about staffing. Um, because to me, I had seen so many people burned out and I'd seen turnover and clients getting frustrated because people they liked were leaving or, you know, moving on to different accounts. And it's not a recipe for success. We've had tremendous success holding on to our clients for, you know, since we opened and then continuing to hold on to them our growth is exceedingly in client retention. We're not a heavy like sales culture. Um, and the reason it works is because, and we hear this all the time from our clients, that we are their favorite phone call to make. Like everybody that they talk to is
That's a
happy.
compliment.
Yeah, they're accommodating, they're adaptable, they're willing to, go the extra mile because they know that we're taking care of them, right? I always say to people when I'm interviewing, like, I do expect you to take the client call on Saturday night if there's an emergency, right? We're not limiting these hours to 9 to 5, and we're not denying access to our clients. But on a Tuesday morning, if things are light, take a nap, go for a walk, shut down the computer, like
Yeah.
make choices that allow you to live your life. And I think it really reflects in our employees and their happiness and the quality of the work that they do. And then also it allowed us when COVID hit to just instantly transition into work from home. We now have people who have moved out of LA that are continuing to work, and we didn't miss a beat. I'm super passionate about it, and I could talk about this forever. But in terms of functional things too, like we have a policy we call ultimate agency, which is unlimited vacation, unlimited sick and personal days. If you just wake up that morning and you can't, then don't. And we support each other and we come together and help each other out, because I know if I step up and take over for somebody that isn't doing well that day, they're going to do the same for me in a month or whenever. And then it's really reflected in sort of how we run things, day to day. Just the little decisions we have to make: who's going to be in this meeting, who can take this issue on, who's got time to clean read this at 7 p.m. So we work really flat and we're very collaborative and stuff, because you need that sort of network in order to support the work when you've got people who are in and out, living their lives and doing other things. I'll stop.
No, I love that. And boy, all right, so this, often I find in these conversations that they could go on for a really long time. And this is another example of that, but we don't have a really long time. But I will say is that I know that I built my businesses as well to focus on, it's on the task, not on the hours. And so balancing the task load is what's appropriate. And if we get those tasks done in 20 hours, great. Say 60 hours, well, that's not so great. But but balancing staffing needs based upon on the task load, with the expectation that there is infinite flexibility in schedules. There's no time clocks. I hate that concept as well. The when you work when you can work, and you don't work when you don't have to work. So, and if we're all working all the time, then we're probably doing something wrong, right? We're too far on the lean side. So I love that you've built a business that's driven by that same idea, and it sounds like you've done it better than I ever have in my own businesses. So
I'll give you some tips. Yeah.
Well, and maybe we should, because that's when when COVID first hit, one of the things that kept me sane, after relatively speaking, right after the oh shit episode, right, that I think we all kind of went through, was, okay, what good comes out of this? Okay, what do things look like a year from now, year and a half from now? And I could see that one of the immediate things was going to be, well, work has just gotten divorced from location, right? And so what does that mean, right? That I think we'll see this evolution of changing dynamics in many businesses from being detached, not just from location, but also from a schedule, and to be more focused on task oriented, and what good comes from that when employees are able to have work-life balance, because you're actually at home doing these things all the time. And so it's been interesting to hear another story, right, like that you were able to seamlessly transition into that world because you already had the fundamental principles in place, right? And driven by your experience as wanting to be a mom and wanting the whole package, right? You didn't want to sacrifice anything. You wanted to have it all. That's fantastic. I am. We could talk a lot, and I can tell you this much: we will talk again, Rebecca.
Okay, good. We have board game stuff and comics to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's actually, we're planning an event later on this year that I think I'd like you to be involved in as well, but
Okay.
we'll circle back around on that. Um, so from that idea of a female entrepreneur and leader who has built a successful business, um, is there any advice, any tip
Hmm.
that you would give to other entrepreneurs, other females that you know don't want to trade off either, right? That
Yeah.
you want to have it all, whatever that all is, right? That's individual to everybody, but any tips that you would share for that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't think that you have to start your own business. There's a great example. Jenna Landy from Pinterest spoke at the Wire event we hosted in LA in the fall of last year about how she went to her bosses and said, I see a need here and it also fits my personal need and interest. And she created a whole new department within her company and is super happy now. So I think there's certainly ways to work within the system too. So I'm not advocating that everybody just, bail out and
Right.
give a middle finger to the old company. But I think that one of the things that has always come back to me is I play poker, or I used to before kids, a lot. And there's this sort of saying in poker that the players who win are the players that don't care about money. And I think I'm naturally not money inclined. I know I find it confusing and I just, when people talk about it. So I think that I've made some decisions and taken some risks that other folks wouldn't have because of a focus on the money. I also very much believe that if you're going to do something entrepreneurial, you have to have a leaders eat last attitude. It can't be about going in and trying to do a money grab because then you're putting yourself ahead of your team, yourself ahead of your clients. So, for instance, when COVID hit, and Viking Cruises at the time was our biggest client, and we didn't know, they weren't on the water anymore. We didn't know what they were going to do with their research. Luckily, they kept it, but we came up with a plan right away. Like, the leaders are taking pay cuts now. And then we will give you guys at least a 2 to 4 week notice before we ask you for pay cuts, and then before we start furloughing it. We had a
Yep.
very clear plan in place where the primary goal was protecting our people and not about
Yep.
protecting our money.
Yep.
And then I think too that there's another Oprah spoke at Qualtrics a couple of years ago, I think, at their summit. And she said something that was really fascinating. Somebody asked her, if you could go back and tell your younger self something, what would it be? And she said, I would tell myself to listen to the whispers. We all have those sort of like, this doesn't feel right, or, those kinds of feelings. And we push them aside because we're rationalizing, or we don't want to deal with it, or whatever. And so I really try to listen to, if something doesn't feel right, like dig into that and why. And it inevitably 100% of the time leads to a better outcome. So those are the things that I use to kind of hold myself together.
Those are words of wisdom, Rebecca. Words of wisdom.
Not mine, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's the life lessons, and they're hard won. So yeah, I don't think any of us create this stuff, right? We just pick it up through, at least if you're like me, it's through ouch, the
Right.
stove is hot, ouch, the stove is hot, ouch, the stove is hot, right? I mean, it's repetitive. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I shouldn't touch the stove.
I
I
should touch
got
the
it.
stove this time. Yeah.
Right, right. So um, this has been great. Thank you
Yeah,
so
it's been
much.
fun.
We will definitely connect again on several fronts, including, we got to finish our geek conversation as well.
Yes. Most important. Yeah.
You be well. Congratulations on all the success, and
Thank you.
thank you for taking the time to chat with us today.
Yeah. Thanks, Lenny.
All right, thanks, Rebecca. Take care. Bye bye.
You too. Bye bye.